I think we'll move on to Scorpion, and we can. Sorry, just adjusting Baz. Maybe just cover a little bit of the story again, a little bit briefly, just because there's actually so much else to cover. So this was I can't even remember the title of the story. The story of Shoju and Kachiko having a discussion about what the Masters of Deception. No, that's the name of the thing. Lost it. What the future of the Scorpion clan should be, and the varying philosophies on how much they should take center stage versus work from the shadows. For me, it's great seeing Shoju, and there was some interesting tidbits about him and his, medication for his withered hand. But getting into sort of the political maneuverings, I think, is kind of what Scorpion players kind of are drawn to a lot of the time. And while I guess like a lot of stories, it really served as an introduction and a lot of scene setting without having the sort of payoff from the story that gives a sense of conclusion. We haven't seen that a lot just because the nature of what these stories are trying to do. But as an introduction, I think it was very interesting to see sort of the hints at ambition and towards a potential sort of coup type storyline. Whether that ambition is stemming from a whispering blood sword is another question. Yeah, blood swords. They have awesome traits. They're given by Ichiban. The Scorpion's trait was ambition. Scorpion sort of figured out that people with these swords were having bad things happen to them and locked their sword away, but it still sort of led them to want to take over the empire. But that's a big tangent. What do you guys think of the Scorpion story, Eoin?
Well, I liked it quite a lot. You see, the Scorpion have probably the strongest story available to them if they choose to go down that road again right now. So they needed, in some ways, the least setup in terms of let's explain what the Scorpion are about. The Scorpion already have a strong hook. So they can choose to commit or not to commit to that hook. There was a couple of bits of discussion about it, but some people were wondering if instead of Shoju having ambition, if it was actually Kachiko that had ambition.
Interesting, yeah.
Because one of the things about ambition is she could have it in that scene and you wouldn't see it. Because ambition's special extra power was that no one could see it unless it wanted to be seen. So the wielder would have ambition and no one would know they were actually carrying a katana. So that's one of the little things about ambition. And we notably don't see inside Kachiko's thought process at all. We just see inside Shoju's.
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting dynamic that she was the one sort of pushing for the prominent position, while Shoju was sort of more cagey and siding with some of the family daimyos about working more from the shadows. Justin, what do you think?
Yeah, likewise. Again, it reminded me an awful lot of the Phoenix story in that it didn't do a huge amount to set up their story particularly, but it gave an awful lot of insight into the flavor of the clan. I mean, all the gardeners and groundskeepers who were, Scorpion agents, basically keeping a watch out for anyone wandering by, so that they could warn their so they could warn Shoju and Kachiko that they might be overheard was a great touch. And I mean, obviously, and Shoju's kind of fairly cavalier attitude to his own life and survival was interesting as well. Because all it takes is one slip, and if you've got someone swinging a katana at your head, you only have to get unlucky to die. So that was kind of interesting. Obviously, it presented Shoju as a much more philosophically inclined individual, as compared to Kachiko, who really does seem to be the driving force behind the Scorpion's rise, or at least we'd be kind of led to believe that she is certainly one of the big shakers and movers behind the scene for Scorpion. So there is kind of a philosophical difference, quite a really marked philosophical difference there between Shoju and Kachiko. So I'm really interested to see how that plays out as the story continues.
Yeah,
and also this, if Kachiko is the wielder of ambition, that brings into question, or possibly even further question, Kachiko's relationship with Hitaru and exactly what is going on there. So.
And also Bayushi Daru is a person. So correct me if I'm wrong, but in the old story, Bayushi Daru was the son of Kachiko and Doji Hotaru.
Hoturi.
Hoturi, who was the male incarnation of the Crane Champion, but what became a Scorpion, and was sort of the son of Shoju, if not by blood, by name.
I kind of feel that Dario in this story has a little card that says, "Yes, I am actually a person," because he keeps getting asked that question over and over and over again.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on the story, Baz, for you before we moved on?
I thought it was really nice that the first story was from Dave Latteroot, and that the last story, the World of Stage for the clans, was also by him. It was nice that he was doing Kachiko on both sides of it, I thought.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'm convinced with how people are looking at the coup. I know there's definite suggestions, and we've talked about this before, that it doesn't matter how often you nod to things that might be happening, or the foreshadowing, it happens when it happens. But I did find it really interesting that Shoju was in the know, and essentially gave a little summary of all the previous clan fictions, like he's been waiting at the FFG site as the stories were coming out and was reading all of them. And the big reveal for me was that the Crab were wrong, that the Scorpion weren't messing around and denying the Crab the ear of the Emperor, that something else is going on there, and that the Emperor is either being influenced by someone else or is choosing not to listen to the Crab. So I kind of feel there's more to that there, and it would make me suspect that the discussion that they were having was more a reaction to that potential weakness of the Emperor than an actual. I guess you're still drifting towards a coup, but that's a premeditated discussion that they'd already had, if that makes sense. But yeah, I really enjoyed the story. I mean, anything with Shoju and Kachiko is fantastic. I keep having to say Kachiko because John Wick told me that's how it's said, even though Kachiko sounds so much sexier, like she should be. But anyway, I love listening to I loved hearing about Shoju. I never really got into his story in the old stuff. And I'm really enjoying him.
Yeah, and for those who are new to Imperial Advisor, we did do an interview with Dave Latteroot, which is on our YouTube channel and is well worth the listen. I think it's one of the better things we've done, because he just has a really interesting view and gives us a lot of insights into how the fiction sausage gets made. That's usually negative. No, how the fiction lily is gilded. I don't know. I'm struggling. Yeah, but it was very interesting to hear about the process, and he's a super interesting guy. Right, let's jump to some Scorpion cards that are hot off the proverbial presses. Let's start with a stronghold. So, City of the Open Hand, 1 strength, 10 starting honor. If you're less honorable than your opponent, by the stronghold, take 1 honor from that player. Eoin, how does City of Open Hand make you feel?
So I think it's interesting. There are two ways to play Scorpion, as far as we've seen in terms of Dishonor, where you're bidding 1 all the time, whereas this one is a lot about bidding higher than that and stealing back some of the honor you just gave your opponent right back, which is nice and thematic and quite Scorpion. So it's gonna fulfill two different sort of play styles. This one feels more into I want to draw lots of cards, and we've seen effects where Scorpion already like to be higher on the bid dial than their opponents. Cards like I can swim, so this stronghold helps with that. I'm going to bid 3. Cool, you bid 2. You go 1 above me. Let me steal it back as my action, and that's plenty good. Interestingly, it's also only +1 province strength, and one of the speculations of that is because Scorpion are so good at dishonoring, they didn't want to make their final province really hard to take, especially if all of your guys are dishonored as you're going in.
Baz, any thoughts on City of the Open Hand?
I like it a lot. I'm not entirely sure what to think of it because obviously we've only recently seen it. The fact that they're on 10 and it seems to be 10 for some, 11 for most, and then 12 for the line. Essentially, they're at 11. Like, they sit down on the table and they can choose to immediately snag 1 from their opponent if they want to, and they don't necessarily want to. I think as Owen was saying, it does open up the opportunity of just drawing more cards and not worrying about it, because you can always sneak back 1 more honor as you go, and it also lets them play more stuff like assassination or cards with honor losses, or get more of their guys dishonored if they need to fulfill effects. And then recover that. The dishonor side of it is an interesting one, because if they're trying to dishonor their opponent, maybe they want to actively reduce their own honor so they can just steal 1. If you're on 2 and the Scorpion are down at 1 and then they take the action, now all of a sudden you're at 1 and that's a heartbeat away. So even for the dishonor build, ways of kind of losing honor themselves so they can get a little bit below you is an active approach. But yeah, nice and simple. Encourages cards, and I like cards, so I'm all for the stronghold. I like it a lot.
And I get the impression that honor bidding against Scorpion will be where sort of that honor bidding mechanic really sort of comes into its own, as the sort of bluffing element of it, of whether you go high or low, and how you vary that, and how you set expectations over the course of the game and change them, could really make for a sort of interesting game within a game. Justin, any thoughts?
Yeah, this is a stronghold that is almost the exact opposite of the Unicorn. The Unicorn want to finish the game really quickly and are built to do that. The Scorpion want the game to go on for a long, long time in order to maximize the advantages, the incremental advantages they can gain from this. Now, obviously, as Owen was saying, if you're going for just a hardcore dishonor option, there's a solid chance that you're actually going to turn your own stronghold off. But if you're in a, but I suppose it all comes down to how the Scorpion kind of develop and how their card pool develops. Because what the stronghold does is essentially it's like a race to the bottom, because you are overspending. If you intend to use the stronghold every turn, you are overspending to drop your own honor, and then you are taking honor from your opponent to recoup your own loss. So basically you are setting both players on a course down towards 0. And manipulating that and playing around with that is going to be one of the real head games that playing with and against Scorpion is about. So it's really, really interesting. And it's also, I think, quite simply for the Scorpion, a very amorphous ability. Like, it doesn't lend itself to any particular strategy, but because it's related effectively to card draw as well as a victory condition, there are an awful lot of different ways that you can apply this. And an awful lot of situations that you can either cultivate or take advantage of. So it's perfect for the Scorpion. I really, really love this stronghold. Really, really like it.
Okay, and Bayushi showed you a 5-face 3/7, 2 glory, Bayushi Courtier, Action. While this character is participating in a political conflict, choose a participating character controlled by your opponent. Until the end of the conflict, that character gets -1 politics and is discarded if its skill is 0. Defend against him at your peril, Eoin?
Yeah. Okay, a couple of things to really like about him. He is both a bushi and a courtier.
Yeah.
So immediately you've got somebody who can both potentially rout and outwit. So if you're playing stuff like that, super good. His effect is interesting as well because that once you put that rider on somebody, the -1, and is discarded if its skill is 0, I think that hangs around if you then reduce their politics later. So that's potentially scary for a number of reasons because, hey, they can dishonor you and they have other stat penalties available to them, like, for example, Fiery Madness to poison and a couple of other bits and pieces. So he's a scary guy. And much like Asada is scary because he's got 7 military, Shoju's scary because he's got 7 politics. And he's even scarier if he gets honored. So yeah, very, very solid. Intimidating presence, which is appropriate for Shoju.
Baz, what's your take on Scorpion Champion?
A little disappointed that the ability doesn't work in a military battle, I have to admit.
I'm kind of relieved it doesn't.
But I mean, the whole thing does come together nicely. Yeah, the fact that you're able to drop a couple of minus penalties, and then you can finish off characters afterwards with a combination of dishonor and other effects. So yeah, Owen did already mention the Fiery Madness poison. I'm sure we'll see more of that kind of stuff. You've also got a Bayushi Yuniko who can switch things round, which is terrifying. I mean, if you've got anything even getting close to 2 after it gets dishonored, even on military sides, I mean, she'd come in, switch things around. Yeah, and I mean, he's got a nice number. Like 7 does take provinces, so just by himself, he can actually threaten a province taken and capture a ring, which is pretty awesome. Yeah, I'll need to see him on the table to see how much damage it does. I would worry that you'd almost put a little bit too much emphasis on his ability, but I guess because dishonor is such a focus, that it kind of really opens up on that. Although I would be concerned that it's going to be better against certain clans than others. I mean, when they're going up against a low glory clan, how much good is all the dishonor effects going to be? Well, yeah, the clan champion, I like him a lot. I think it's perfect for him.
And we've seen some sort of champions that are stronger early game champions and some that are stronger late game champions. Justin, do you think Shoju fits one of those molds?
No, I think he's good all the time. He's superb. He's just amazing. I mean, are you ever going to put anything in front of this guy when he is attacking politically? I mean, presumably something you just want to have killed because that's what's going to happen. Yeah, he's going to attract.
I guess. Yeah,
and, absolutely. He's going to attract Cloud the Mind like nobody's business. Just because, I mean, his ability is far more scary than Altan Sarnai's, for example. Far less conditional and far scarier. So it does. I mean, he does. I think he makes Altan Sarnai look pretty weak by comparison. I guess Altan Sarnai has maybe a smidge more fate support or conflict support, but he's fantastic. He's superb. He's superb. 7 politics, like 3 military, the best statted champion in the game, probably.
Yep.
Because he completely dominates one and is more than competitive in another.
And even in like his ability is an extra 2 politics if he's opposed, essentially.
Yeah. Absolutely. Like he is the preeminent politician of Rock again. Which is
as Sneaky Bookshelf points out that if you don't defend against him, you're playing into Scorpion's favor by losing honor for not defending a province. Which
absolutely.
I mean,
and
it's
if
sort of
you
damned if you do, damned if you don't, a little bit.
If you are defending, he's probably murdering a dishonored personality, and you're losing honor. So
I think it's important to note because he's a Bushi, for greater glory does work with him.
Yeah, I can see that being a real staple for Scorpion Baz.
Yeah. I mean,
Well, you swarm Scorpion,
just
you heard it.
I mean, it might be worth trying just to annoy Andy, but we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. Okay, let's keep going. I might just take off like small chunks and we can discuss them together. Might be way too late.
I think maybe just to add to Shoju, if we go through Fiery Madness and we go through Bayushi Yanako quickly.
Yeah, I threw them up as you mentioned, but let's pick up Fiery Madness. So a 2/2. Oh, sorry, -2/-2. Easy to miss that for one fate poison. So a very interesting card and to attach to an opponent.
So that's kill.
Yeah.
Which showed you that's kill anyone who has 2 politics or less and is in the political battle.
I have to admit, the first time I saw it, I thought, "Oh my god, that's going to kill tons of characters." And then I realized there isn't any chi in this game. No, it's just politics. But this is amazing. It's cards like this that make me kind of want to play Scorpion. It's a fantastic control card. It synergizes with a whole bunch of their other stuff. It makes Shoju feel super happy inside. It's the last thing you want to see being attached to one of your personalities with Shoju in a battle. It's just a fantastic card. Fantastic.
And it will be the last thing that personality sees too.
Yeah, probably will be the last thing that person has attached to them in battle.
Another reason to splash Dragon for a lot of clans and play Let Go, Owen?
Yeah, definitely. This card, it's huge because you can use this to save a province from being destroyed. You can use it to reduce, if someone's just going in for a chump, a 2 strength guy going in, just try to claim a ring, and you go Fiery Madness, that ring doesn't get claimed. In fact, pops back to the pool for you to claim, for you to have a go at claiming. Enables Shoju, does a huge number of stuff, makes people more vulnerable to a lot of different actions, hurts certain people's abilities. Like there's really scary 3-drops that sometimes rely on their stats. For example, like the Lion's Pride Brawler. If someone goes Lion's Pride Brawler, put some fade on them, and then you go, cool, Fiery Madness. And that personality is a lot less scary all of a sudden. So it's huge because it hurts the person for as long as they're around. So if you're hitting someone with a lot of fade on them, it's a millstone around the person's neck because all their plans for that person have now been compromised to a certain extent. So yeah, great.
And actually, just when you're going through those, duelers get wrecked by it. It's bringing them down, so they're not really able to duel. It sets up for outwit and riot. So yeah, no, there's plenty of combinations, plenty of setup, and even if you just play it by itself, it's amazing.
And the other character I've mentioned is a unique Bayushi Yanako. 4 fate, 4/2, Bushi Commander. Action. While this character is participating in a conflict, choose a character, switch that character's base military and politics skill until the end of the conflict. Seems like potential to create big swings. Justin, you're looking crushed.
I'm deeply, deeply in love with this character. For just about every reason. She's incredible. Obviously, she's immediately incredible against dash skill personalities. She's just get the hell out of my conflict. She is effectively a 4/4 on her own, independent of any other considerations. She will be 4 strength in whatever you need her to be, meaning she can break any province. Well, she has a shot at breaking an awful lot of provinces on her own solo. And when it comes to Scorpion shenanigans, like Shoju is super, super happy to see her because, that 5 or 6, that all of a sudden, Doji Hitaru is not looking at all invulnerable to Shoju's little poison stabs when she's around. No, she's amazing. Just incredible utility.
Hilariously, she's the one that is in the combat flirt scene with Shoju.
Yeah, absolutely.
He really likes her.
Oh yeah.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Just made the connection.
She's fantastic. She sets up a whole bunch of stuff and is independently strong, regardless of whether you have those combos. available to you. So she's just superb, absolutely superb. One of my genuine favorite characters that I've seen from any clan.
And as John says, if you switch a dash personality, it forces them to go homebound. Which
yes, absolutely. But that's why she's so good against dash. Against dash score personalities in certain duels. They are in conflicts, because if they can defend, you can just switch their stats. All of a sudden, they've got a dash in the wrong conflict type, and they go homebound. So she's so good. She's so good.
I mean, she goes up against clan champions. Like, she looks at a Kodo Toturi and she looks at Kasada and she's like, I can take these guys. Not a problem.
Yeah. And interestingly, both of the 4-cost Scorpions are unique, which is generally speaking an advantage.
Yeah. Free fate.
Yep. Yeah, I feel like I haven't actually counted up. I feel like Scorpion have more uniques than most of the clans.
They've got a fair few. 1, 2, 3. I'm not sure if they have more.
We've got 4 with Miyako and Yogo Hirue.
Maybe they do.
I think it's 4.
I think there's a few. I think it's more that we haven't seen more of their non-uniques, because there's a few Scorpions still AWOL, hiding out, skulking about somewhere on the pages. We should actually mention that FFG did a really cool thing about hiding the Scorpion in the other clans' articles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which was their cunning solution to not having enough weeks to preview everyone. That we all sort of, when we did the maths on how many weeks and how many clans in the run up to Gen Con.
I will say, while I think that was quite cool, I think it's far cooler the guys on the L5R Discard who went through all of those and regularly checked them, which meant we didn't have to.
Yeah.
We just found out when they found it, which was great.
Yeah, like these people who if there's launch ARGs for Portal or for Blizzard, have done them for various launches and go to insane lengths to uncover a new hero or a new game or these announcements. It's
these are the heroes we don't deserve.
Exactly. So I've thrown up those 2 other uniques. Maybe we can talk about them. We've got Yogo Hirue, a 0-4 courtier. But Yogo does not love me. Action: while this character is participating in a conflict, choose a non-participating character, move that character to this conflict. Then, if you win the conflict, you may dishonor that character.
Now the Scorpion have Scorpion. Get over here.
Yeah, so just when you think your character is safe not defending, Yogo brings them into the conflict.
Brutal.
Yeah.
Brutal. He's capable of crushing a province on his own. If he needs to, he can haul in another one of your guys to attack with. He can haul in a guy to defend with if he's defending. He can decide, actually, I'm super winning this conflict. I'm going to pull in your guy and just to bow him. I can pull in your bowed guy and dishonor. Like, there's huge amounts you can do with this personality. He's tremendously flexible. He's got 2 glory as well, which means that, he can be a 2/6 as well. Just great. Just great. Like, if you go in with him first turn or first conflict, water, Yoga Hirue, wow, your opponent is having a poor time. You can just completely disrupt his attack. Just very strong from that point of view. Very, very strong.
And Justin, would you say what's better, his ability or his hair?
I would say his ability, because that hair really needs some conditioner and a solid combing.
Harsh.
Yeah, I mean, I just got to call him like I see him. The ability's amazing. He's another super character. Super good.
Yeah. Like, the ability just does so many things. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are so many different applications for what you can do with this guy. When you're in a game that already has so many decision points and so much mental overload, it's just a whole bunch more stuff that your opponent has to take into consideration and simply may miss because there are so many other things to think about. And if you're the person playing him and you're used to playing him and skilled with playing him, he'll be devastating.
Okay, and The other unique Shisuro Miyako, the Bushi Shinobi, 3 face 3/2. Reaction: after you play a character from your hand, your opponent must select one. Discard 1 card at random from his or her hand, or choose and dishonor a character he or she controls. So I wonder, is it worth quickly mentioning what the characters you can play from hand are? So we've got unassuming Yojimbo, a 3/face 3/1 with covert.
Really good. And the Adept of Shadows.
I haven't got the art for Adept of Shadows.
So the Adept of Shadows is a 2-cost, 2/2 with 0 glory. It is a Bushi and Shinobi, and as an action, you can lose 1 honor to return a character to your hand, which means you drop
Also
and sway.
incredible.
Yeah, you do some damage with it. At the end of the conflict, you can pop it back to hand and then drop them into the next conflict if you've got the cash. Like realistically, all it says is lose 1 honor, draw a card, which you know it's going to be another Adept of Shadows. It's really good.
And then you buy your stronghold to recoup the honor you just spent on it.
Yeah.
So
doesn't cost anything.
So jumping back to Miyoko, play one of these cards and make it hurt even more by making them discard or dishonor.
And that with that Adept of Shadows, you can consistently do it every turn as long as you've got that extra fate that you're willing to spend. And
Owen, we haven't talked about City of Lies, one of the Scorpion holding we saw quite early on, which reduces the cost of events specifically by 1. But do you think Scorpion are going to run into fate issues?
Well, everyone's going to have some fate issues. I'm not a huge fan of City of Lies. It's a bit fiddly to use, but it's not that it's super slow. Now, I think it's appropriately super slow because you don't want to have too much stuff in the game that really allows you to go, well, I've got extra fate sources. So I don't have a huge problem with it being super slow, but it's a bit awkward. And they have a lot of things they could spend fate on. I think you'll see Scorpion try to scrimp and save and get it to having 3 or 4 fate on their side of the board after their dynasty phase and make life hard for you that way. But I think that's one of the nice things about the game, where there are some really powerful effects. There's some really powerful cards, but a lot of them cost fate. So having a reserve of fate, not having spent all your fate, is a good thing. Even if it costs you immediate board position, you have later board position available to you. So yeah, I mean, I think a lot of different clans will have issues with Rao. I'd really like to have some more fate just so I can play all these cards. But yeah, I think Scorpion will have issues with it. But I mean, I think everyone's got good stuff they want to spend their fate on.
Yeah. I mean, I think part of this could be a balancing effect or just a balancing condition. If it was like Sparks is saying, it should be an interrupt. I think it would be way too good as an interrupt. So as a Scorpion player, you have to show your hand a little bit when you take this action to set up the cost reduction, which gives your opponent an opportunity to kind of read what's going on in the battle and maybe preempt or react in turn to that, and try and change the state of the conflict, presumably the conflict, in order to combat what you're doing. Because otherwise it's simply a holding that says produce 1 fate, and that's ludicrous. It's just too strong individually on its own. I mean, I think this is already a really, really strong card, despite the delay.
Yeah.
Because fate is very, very hard to come across. So the fact that and I mean, the thing is as well with conflicts aren't all that tempo based. Like in old 5 rings, conflicts were hugely tempo based, and an action that required you to, if you had to take an action to set up another action, and that was all that action did, that was unplayable, because in the space of those, your army could have been reduced, it could have been destroyed, or you could have had key characters missing, everything could have fallen apart. In the conflicts in new 5 rings, like, your guys tend to stick around. Not always, they can get sent home, but they tend to stick around. So the tempo loss isn't as big a deal. But I do think it is a minor balancing factor that does give your opponent an opportunity to preempt or to attempt to preempt what you're doing and react to it in that way. So because otherwise this card would be just way too good. Just way too good.
Just to slightly skip ahead, because of the way City of Lies works, it does give the opponent an action window in which they can play the card that they're most afraid is going to get hit by Forged Edict. So Forged Edict is the Voice of Honor equivalent. So it's a 0 cost event. Interrupt when effects of an event would initiate, dishonor a friendly courtier character, cancel the effects. If they trigger City of Lies and then you play a card that they really want to Forged Edict, they can play it, but that's going to waste their City of Lies and might mean they're not going to be able to blackmail you next. So, I mean, depending on what the kind of the fate numbers are like, it could be key, or it may not. It may just lose them one fate and they'll just continue doing what they're doing. But at least it's the one fate.
And by the same token, as a Scorpion player, you can use this to bait out a key action and force them to play their hand really early. You know, if they're using that as the window, then you can use it to bluff. So it adds an additional element of mind games to conflicts that involve the Scorpion, which is apt, I feel. So it's potentially a huge skill tester, in a tight conflict. So yeah, but like as Bez said, you know, it's all of them. I mean, there are a whole bunch of things that you have to take into consideration when this action is being used. You know, am I giving my opponent an opportunity to push something through? Is this going to cost me too much? You know, and the player sitting across from it also has to take into has to think about, am I being bluffed here? Am I being baited? Is playing this card now, would I be doing this normally, or am I doing this because I think I have a window? So it's I think it's an incredibly strong card with a huge amount of subtle depth to it. So I'm a big fan.
Yeah, and maybe before we're there, we can talk about the Scorpion Province. So 4 strength, secret cache. Reaction: after a conflict is declared against this province, search the top 5 cards of your conflict deck for a card and add it to your hand. Shuffle. Owen, what are you worried about when you run into secret cache?
Well,
everything.
He's gonna get something, or she's gonna get something. I don't know how good or bad it is, because it's going to be the best card in the situation. Nearly, that top 5 is going to be kind of brittle. On the scope of reveal effects, it's bad. There are worse reveal effects to run into, but it is certainly they're going to get something useful. Now, it's an air province as well, so it's going to be competing with
manicured gardens and fertile fields.
Yeah, so both of those. Fertile fields is a weaker effect, I think, whether it draws you a card, doesn't it?
Draw a card, yeah. It's manicured gardens is just better at the moment.
Get fate, yeah. So there are nastier ones to run into. It's going to get you an excellent card, and that's certainly something, you know.
Technically, it's not a reveal effect, as
it's not a reveal effect.
Sparks is saying in all caps.
It's a reaction to the conflict.
Oh yeah, cool. So yeah, it's going to keep going.
It could do it multiple times potentially.
All of the other ones that said reaction to when something is when it's been revealed, and we've been kind of looking at the action ones and going, these action ones are ones that we can constantly redo every conflict or every turn. So yeah, secret cache from that perspective is fantastic. Like if they draw the card that will save that province, it's back in action again next turn.
Is this going under the stronghold, Baz?
Oh, that's an interesting point. What would you put under the stronghold then for Scorpion?
I'm not sure, but Trenched, I want people running.
Earth stronghold, probably, Earth province with +5 against military, and
or maybe a shameful display.
No, you want shameful later.
You want that earlier.
Is in the provinces, yeah.
I'd probably, if I had a choice, I'd go Seeker of Void, probably with Scorpion. Go Pilgrimage, Secret Cache, Entrenched Position, Shameful Display, and probably got a Firewater to pick from. Maybe swap the ring type. and basically go do it that way.
Or maybe switch to conflicts.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a fantastic province. It's really good. Yeah, I can see the reasons not to put it under the stronghold, but I mean, you could put it under stronghold, and it would serve its purpose. It would do quite a good job there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I just prefer something really chunky under the stronghold.
You like not losing?
I do. I would entrenched is kind of just is almost the go-to for me at the moment under the stronghold, just because it's so hard to break. Even for politics, like you're trying to win politics by 7+ against Scorpion. It's not that easy.
And actually, with all those dishonor effects, that's going to be pretty rough.
Yeah, so I like it under the. And again, I mean, it's one of those provinces that is just horrible to run into. And if you're forced into attacking it again, I mean, the thing is, so if you run across the board and you bump into that, they will get a card that will more than likely defend that province. They'll get a court games or something else that will stop you from taking it. And then you don't want to go there again, so you run across the board again and you run into shameful display, and you're not taking that province either, because now they're honored, you're dishonored, and they wreck you. And at some point you have to go into one of those again. And I mean, again, because like in the games we've been playing, again, going to Phoenix, like I've started running Kuroi Mori in my provinces, just because it's almost impossible to take. It's almost impossible to take, and you can usually just generate enough tempo out of that to be winning the game anyway. So anyway, neither here nor there. But I mean, I do really like this.
So hold on, just to clarify, you like not losing, but you also like winning. It's very demanding.
They're almost the same thing. Almost the same thing.
Not quite.
And top tips for anyone playing against Justin at Gen Con: Kuroi Mori not in the stronghold.
Yeah, so whatever you do, don't attack any of the provinces.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, don't attack a province.
Right.
That's just hold on. Games within games.
Yeah, I'm not playing Scorpion. You know.
Exactly.
And actually, just while we're on that, very briefly to skip all the way back to Unicorn, are the Unicorn going to play Endless Plains? They might not, because everyone's going to assume they are.
Yeah, and actually, in single core, I absolutely wouldn't. Anyone worth their salt is going to send in a one fate waste of space to get killed by that thing, and you're going to feel awful for having put that province, for having put that province in your deck. Like it's one of those things. Like, sure, it might catch inexperienced players off guard, but once you get to but once there are so many crap personalities that you'll be facing. So many crap personalities that one of them is just going to get flung into the endless plains, and you're going to feel awful. I mean, it's such an awful tempo loss.
You don't have to break it though.
Well, it's got 2 province strengths. You're going to be hard pushed not to break it. I mean, you actually have to try not to break it. And if you're running across with a Seppin Guardsman or something like that, I mean, obviously, if you send in just a Seppin Guardsman on his own, then maybe not. But it's terrible. It's not good in single core. I think it's way stronger in constructed, where you will not have Seppin Guardsmen and Atomo Courtiers and Maya Mystics running around the place.
Yeah,
like
where everyone's characters are good because they're playing only the good characters.
In counterpoint, we played a few games against Unicorn, and the initial reaction was, Endless Plains is terrible. And every time we attacked, it wrecked us. So it is a bit limited in some ways, and it is a bit like there are always an expendable guy, but you have to kind of alter the way you play to a certain extent against it, just in the danger of it, So it doesn't look very good, and sometimes it's junk, but sometimes it just wrecks your day.
Yeah, I kind of feel like you want to play it in the first 2 rounds where people are still reading all the cards and don't know what's going on. And then when you get into the last few rounds of the first tournament, when people have kind of worked it out, you don't want to be playing it then.
You sideboard it, where the sideboard rules. Okay, so there's a few cards from the fan on the article. We had one that we don't know much about, but is curiously dash, the one fate Sinister Soshi with 0 glory. And the other card here is the Yogo Outcast for 2 fate 2/2. Air Shigenja. Character gets +1/+1 while you're less honorable than an opponent. So 2/2 with chance for being 3/3. A solid card or better than that? Or worse than that?
Which, the Yogo or the Sinister? Because the
sorry.
Sinister is amazing just because she's a 1 dash character. It's amazing.
I don't even know what that means.
She's 1 fate cost dash character. She's right there in the fan. I'm kind of wondering if she'll be a Yogo Asami, actually. If she'll be like, action Bowery your opponent chooses in bows.
Not for one. No, she couldn't be for one.
Probably not. But I mean,
I feel she will find some way to affect conflicts, despite the fact that she cannot herself participate.
Indeed, or she'll give -2 strength, military or political, to someone in a conflict or something like that, which would be apt for what the Scorpion are all about, the debuffs.
Yeah.
So,
and the Yogo Outcast?
Yeah, I mean, 2 cost 3/3. I mean, obviously a 2 cost character is inherently not wonderful because you're gonna march her into a conflict, load her up with items and actions, and then someone's going to assassinate her. But she's fine. As 2/2 characters go, she's fine. She's not brilliant. Like, she's no Acolyte of Water, but she's not terrible either. So she's grand.
She's okay. The one thing about her is you can potentially with the court games crack a 4 strength problems with her. So that's not terrible in 2 cost. That's not terrible in 2 cost at all.
Nope.
All right.
And she's an extra Shigenja that might make it viable to play Shigenja cards. I think there's only one other Shigenja.
Because Cloud the Mind is
Rue is a Shigenja, and that might be it.
Rue is.
No,
Sorry?
I don't think her.
Oh, no, it's
Haru is
sorry.
a courtier. No, it's the
My mistake.
Soshi Illusionist is the other one I've seen.
Oh yeah, the one that discards.
Spend 1 fate,
Status-
choose a character
status tokens.
to start a status token. Okay, so let's maybe just cover off the remaining Dynasty characters. I think we've seen quite a few of them before. So we have the Young Rumor Monger. Interrupt: when a character would be honored or dishonored, choose another character controlled by the same player. That character receives the honor or dishonor instead. I'll just do these together. Bougie Manipulator, 1/1 for 1. After honor dials are revealed, increase the value of your bid by 1. And Shasiro Actress, Courtier Shinobi, 1/3 for 3. During a conflict, sacrifice this character. So seeing a little bit of the crab sacrifice. Choose a non-shinobi character with printed cost 3 or lower in an opponent's discard pile. Put that character into play in the conflict under your control.
She's ridiculous.
Yeah, she's pretty good.
She's stupid. Because you can attack with her, do your conflict, win your conflict, she goes home, next conflict. Well, she is bad at home, might as well sacrifice her and get someone from your discard pile to play.
Yep. And if you're playing against Crab, then you get one of their discard effects, and after that conflict ends, then you discard that too. Woo!
So how does that? If she picks up a crab, she can.
Let's say I pick up a crab that sacrifices to do something, or any guy that sacrifices for stuff. I can basically go, well, she becomes that person, use him or her in the conflict, and then I'll do their effect. Massive.
Right.
Massive.
So it is quite nice that she steals other characters, but the big thing about it is in her last turn, she doubles up, as Owen is saying. She's twice as effective in her last turn. And unlike with the Kitsu Spirit Caller, that character is going to be sitting in your opponent's discard pile for the next Shosuro Actress who turns up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
just something from chat. We have Travis Fights Dragons saying basically Source, his podcast mate, played a review copy, and the Sinister Soshi has an action to give a character -2/-2 for 1 conflict, and she is also a Shigenja with the air trait. So the Scorpion have access to quite a few Shigenja.
Yeah.
And more murder death. Does she
Yeah.
have any glory?
Yeah, and more murder death. Yeah, absolutely more debuffing.
Does she
Another
have any glory?
0.
Okay, that's probably for the best.
Yeah, and a buddy of more pals for Shoju.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I hate her already.
Yeah, she's fantastic.
Although I would like to say that in the very first of these podcasts, I did point out that Scorpion was my first choice in clan.
only the 10 years ago.
Oh, if only it was 10 years ago.
Yeah, only the was it? Yeah, best part of how long? Okay, let's dash into some conflict cards, and let's start with Wave the Scorpion, a 0-cost event. During a conflict, choose a participating non-Scorpion character and dishonor them. That seems pretty good to me, because 0-cost events are good. Especially if you've got
unless
good
you're
actions.
playing in a Scorpion mirror match, in which case this card is dead. Except
in single core, as we've discussed, there will be plenty of.
Yeah, in single core you'll be fine, and probably in constructed. I'm sure Scorpion might end up. No, they won't. All their characters are too good. But yeah, it's super good. I don't think it's a bit more combo oriented than Way of the Crane, which is obviously the mirror of this. It's generally not going to be as effective as Way of the Crane, because with Way of the Crane you will generally be honoring someone with more glory more regularly than you will be dishonoring someone with higher glory with Way of the Scorpion. That's a long and convoluted sentence.
You can't rely on your opponent having high glory.
I mean, obviously, yeah. If you run into Crab and stuff, and if you run into Crab and Scorpion all day, then you're going to be really, really unhappy. But if you run into Crane and Phoenix, you're going to be super, super happy.
Yeah.
So
this really ruins Phoenix's day, doesn't it?
This one weird trick the Phoenix players hate.
Yeah, absolutely. But it does also it helps set up for things like I Can Swim as well. So it's it's good. It's a way. They're all good. They're all pretty defining for the clan, and you're probably just gonna play this.
Yeah. You mentioned I Can Swim, a 2-cost event, also philosophy. During a conflict, if the bid on your honor dial is higher than an opponent's, choose a participating dishonored character controlled by that opponent and discard them. So obviously,
a
great
straight up
synergy.
2-part combo.
Yeah, so this is like the counterpart to the Noble Sacrifice out of Crane.
Yep.
Except this is better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Discard is good.
It's a 2-cost card with 3 conditions on it, and it's still great. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just but the thing is, with because they're like with most of the rest of the clans, will generally want to be bidding fairly low around Scorpion.
Yeah.
Especially if you've got a clan champion on the table, because Good Omen is one of the few ways of extending the life of a champion or a really high impact character. So a lot of the time you are going to be bidding fairly low.
So yeah, what do you do if you've got a dishonored clan champion on the table? Do you bid high or low?
You just cry, really. I think
that's the reality.
You more or less resign yourself to your fate.
Yeah, you bid high, you're gonna get dishonored out. You bid low, your clan champion's gonna die, and you're gonna lose honor, and then get dishonored out.
Yeah. So
Pick your poison.
So pick your poison. And I mean, like the Scorpion, like just one
Fiery
question,
madness.
with the manipulator, can he increase your dial to 6?
Yes.
Does it go all the way to 11?
It can go all the way to 11, but it doesn't affect the bid. So for the effect of this card, it doesn't matter. But you can draw 9 cards, and then we know you can draw a bazillion cards.
You can just bid 5 that turn. I'd hope you have guessed right that your opponent was also planning on bidding 5.
I mean, it's the mad head games of any game with the Scorpion. So, but I mean, I can swim it. Like the setup for Noble Sacrifice is a lot more is so much more telegraphed. And admittedly, it is a 1-cost event, but we've seen that card completely change the complexion of games on its own, and I just don't see I Can Swim being any worse than that, and probably considerably better.
Okay, let's keep it moving, and we'll talk about Court Mask, a +1/+2 attachment that costs 1. Attach to a character you control. Return this attachment to your hand. Dishonor attached character for 1 influence. How is this going to be used, Baz?
So this is kind of the mirror of Adept of Shadows. So
this will be used frequently and often, I think.
Yeah, I mean, dishonoring a character isn't that bad when that character is about to leave play in 2 seconds anyway. So essentially, you're gonna to lose 1 honor because the dishonor character dies to get this back to hand. And I mean, that and Adept of Shadows give a lot of access to skill that the Scorpion can play and can replay and will stick around for the rest of the game. I guess there is a weird scenario where you can blackmail a character and then attach this to him and then return it to hand to dishonor them and then hand back to dishonored character at the end of play. And to be honest, you're probably going to be doing a lot of those things anyway. So, I mean, you might. But yeah, I just for the fact that it returns back the hand, that it's kind of active return, I think is fantastic. It's better in my opinion than the ancestral stuff. So the ancestral stuff, when the character leaves play, they go back to hand because you can dishonor your bowed character to that's been in that military conflict already and got +1 military out of it, and then return it back to hand and then drop the same mask on someone in your political conflict. So it can do double duty. Playing like that and doing those kind of things with the Adept of Shadows can end up quite fate intensive, but it means you've got flexible skill. It's that concept of water. You're never quite sure where it's going to be because it can move from one side of the table to the other. So having an Adept of Shadows with a Court Mask on the table means you can attack with a 3/4 and then at the end of that conflict bounce it all back to hand and then drop another 3/4 again. I love them. I think they're great.
Yeah, okay, and blackmail, we've mentioned, quite expensive at 3 cost, but obviously put in effect on 3 influence. Play only if you're less honorable than your opponent. During a conflict, choose a character controlled by your opponent with printed cost 2 or lower. Take control of that character until the end of the conflict. Owen, what are your thoughts on blackmail?
If there's ever any part of the game that has told you do not put stuff on 2-cost characters, this kind of finishes you off. Like if assassination wasn't bad enough, in constructed certainly, putting like a bonsai or an attachment onto anybody with 2 cost or lower is asking to get got. I don't know how much this card is going to see play. 3 is a ludicrous amount. It generates potentially a really big thing in the battle, but 3 is really high. Like it could be worth it. There's a condition on this as well. It's not just pay 3 and have a valid target. It is like you need to be less honorable. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's super expensive, and it might see some play. But there's also assassination, and that's free. It just costs you 3 honor.
That's exactly. I think the presence of assassination really undermines this card's viability significantly. Just because the difference between 0 fate and 3 fate that's half a turn. That's half a full turn's production, and that's ludicrous. So, I mean, if you want redundancy, I mean, the thing is, there are an awful lot of small characters in single core, so you probably play this anyway just because. But if people aren't, people won't be investing much into 2-cost characters to begin with, and this is just another reason not to do it. So it's fine, but I think assassination is the go-to card for the time being.
I disagree. I think this card is great. Like for 3 fate, you're removing 2 fate from your opponent, adding 2 fate to yourself. So essentially, you're up a fate. Now it is only for the conflict, so you're gonna have to make the right choices. You know, really, you're kind of looking for something. Well, I guess you kind of look at it as something with no fate left. There are a couple of effects that the Scorpion can use that, as costs, will dishonor things. So, for example, if you are dropping that mask onto whoever you've just robbed, you know, that you've kind of ignored your dishonor effect. Similarly, if you're using Spies at Court, you can dishonor the character you're about to hand back. But just looking at it as a 3 cost, remove a 2 cost character and get one yourself, I think that is worth it. I think as players, we have a tendency to overvalue stuff that comes out of the Dynasty compared to the Fate. And I think this is a situation where it might be better looking at the Fate cards more than the Dynasty. Now it's been mentioned that assassination is a big deal, and what that has taught us is not to put anything on characters. But I know for the Dragon, one of the best characters they have is the Knit Adept, and that has a blank ability unless you drop an attachment on it. If a Scorpion blackmails that, they're not just taking an attachment and a character, they're also using that ability to bow one of my other characters. That's a pretty nightmare scenario, and I don't think you can say, well, don't run 2 cost characters, or don't drop anything, or don't invest any fate on them. You're going to do it at some point, and blackmail and assassination will be there. And I think having 3 blackmails in the deck to go along with your 3 assassinations, there's no such thing as overkill. There's just more kill. I like it.
All right.
I like it a lot.
And I think the last one is Ambush, another 3 cost event. This time for 1 influence action during conflict. Choose up to 2 Scorpion characters with total printed cost 6 or lower from your hand, and/or provinces. Put those characters into play as participating characters. So obviously potentially better, getting a bit more value for your 3 fate this time. Justin, would you say?
Yeah, potentially. I mean, there's a restriction here that it's choose up to 2 characters, so you have a maximum of 2. So you won't be able to, you won't be able to live the dream as a unicorn player and slam down like 5 characters into a conflict. But no, I mean, but this is really solid. Again, very, very, I mean, very expensive at 3 fate, but for a single turn, you are getting a significant fate boost for a single conflict. And being Scorpion, that could be that could be military, or it could be political. So it's a good finisher. It's a good finisher for sure. And I mean, again, like being able to slam a clan champion into play for 3 fate in a single turn, that's okay. It's like a really crap charge in that case, probably, but. Yeah, so maybe not. I don't know. It seems fine to me.
Owen, do you want to? Sorry, go on, Justin. Jenny.
Yeah, and again, just because Scorpion don't look like a Blitz clan, they look like a control clan. So a card like this doesn't bring or doesn't raise the same problems it does out of a clan like Unicorn, where they blast 2 of your provinces and then slam down, a huge amount of dudes on a final turn and then smash. This is a much more kind of tactically nuanced card than Cavalry Reserves.
Owen, any thoughts on Ambush?
It's no Cavalry Reserve. I see the synergies for Cavalry Reserve immediately. This one is a lot harder to get value out of. Not impossible, but a lot harder to get value out of. Just because you're going to... they have to be in your hand, and you could play them already if they're in your hand. They have to be face up in your provinces. I mean, like Cavalry Reserve goes to the discard. That's already a huge advantage.
Yeah. Yep.
It's not bad per se, but I mean, there might be a build of the deck when you're like, okay, Now I'll put a lot of expensive guys in my deck. Now I'll attack and I'll ambush in more guys if I need to. And you might get something out of City of Lies, but you know.
But then why not just play Charge?
Yeah.
I suppose you've got the political flexibility, but Charge is one fate versus 3. So this card is really, it's pretty, like, I think it occupies a pretty specific niche.
If I was to guess, I would say this one took a couple of nerfs in playtest because there was a couple of really overpowering interactions.
My first thought with this was that a couple of Adept and Shadows, keep bouncing them back to hand, and then maybe you have one character. But because it's limited to the 2 Scorpion, that really wrecks it. I think by the time you play it, you're pretty much guaranteed to have an Adept in hand. So then you're hoping to leave a 4-cost character in your province. I don't know.
Paying 3 for it's fine. It's no cavalry reserves, but the clans are both very, very different in what they're trying to do. So
I honestly think I'd prefer to put another card that just added 2-3 force art skill into the actual conflict. Something that did something else. It's just the setup is so convoluted and the payoff. Yeah, it's no cavalry reserves. That's what it comes
Do you
down to.
think this could be?
Oh, hang on. But does this interact? Hang on a second. What's the interaction with this and the Shinobi girl? Sorry, I've forgotten her name.
She only reacts once, so you're not going to get a multiple.
She only reacts once, does she?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Can't
That would have made this much better, but.
But even then, it would just be still 2 cards. You could just play 2 cards instead.
After you play a character from your hand. Yeah, that's different wording. Yeah, it's play a character from your hand as opposed to put a character into play from your hand.
Do you think Ambush might be a sort of sleeper card that, in a year's time suddenly everyone's forgotten about it, and then a deck surfaces that makes it pretty potent? Or is that just wishful thinking?
If you get a 6-cost character from hand in your conflict deck, yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, but I mean, we've all seen characters that are generally poorly statted but cost an absolute fortune because they have an amazing entering play effect. Like, you could see a 6-cost character that kills someone when they come into play. And at that point, all of a sudden Ambush is looking really, really good because you get to cheat this guy in for 3 extra, and he has a massive impact on the board and hangs around for a turn and then goes away, and you don't care because you've done your thing. So absolutely. But I mean, at the moment, this doesn't look like a card that's really that good, but it could become amazing with the right personalities.
If you got this off and you were able to target 2 Shishoro actresses, I think you'd break your opponent's heart. And that's probably why it can't hit discard. Because if you could do that,
oh yeah,
you would be in. Oh God, why am I playing this game? I think that's why. I mean, you could still pull that off, but you'll need to get it from the provinces. So
I think for me, I think Scorpion needed a little bit of tweaking on the conflict characters. So right now we've mentioned the Adept. The other option is the unassuming Yojimbo, who is a 3-cost 3/1 with covert. So this is useless with her. She does not like it at all. So I think down the line, once we see a few more Shinobi conflict cards that they can drop that will work with this, it'll be a really good card. Essentially saving them 3 when they're dropping in a bunch of characters. But at the moment, no, I don't like it.
Yeah, it's also worth noting as well that Scorpion have a huge number of fake cards with they have a large number of conflict cards with outlandish fake costs.
Yeah.
And as good as City of Lies is, you can't guarantee that City of Lies is going to be around when you need to play those cards. So
and it doesn't hit all of them.
That's something. It only hits events. So, like, again, things like the unassuming Yojimbo, good as they are, it's not going to help with those. But there are a lot of really expensive Scorpion fake cards, and that could lead to some desperately unwieldy hands. So, yeah. Anyway, it's just something to be aware of.
Yeah. Okay.
Every single clan has got variants built into them somewhere, and this seems to be Scorpions.
So that is Scorpion. At this point, we are 2 hours and about 5 minutes in, and we haven't covered almost
we did
everything.
skip some cards. Yeah, we actually skipped some cards too. But that's fine. Carry on.
It's like when the teacher is wrapping up the class, and then that student puts up his hand.
Homework,
yeah, exactly. So I'm going to propose, if you guys are willing to keep on bashing through the show notes, because I know I'd still like to talk Smoke Does Fire, organized play, single core environment. We take a short break and come back for that. How does that sound to you guys?